Hello and welcome to Topper Talk here on SWS, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome, after 3 years, Aarya Sahani, who was a student of our first SWS batch of 2020 when we were still teaching on the YouTube channel largely. We didn't have our app. So Aarya, thank you very much. Aarya scored 99% and he was one of the All India toppers in the batch of 2020. He has subsequently cracked NEET as well, and he's now a student at the St. GS Medical College, which is attached to the KEM Hospital in Mumbai. So a student who has been there and understand what it is to be an absolute achiever. So Aarya, why I reached out to you is, one, of course, you're an extremely focused student. The ICSE Class 10 examinations are starting in a week's time from now. So I wanted you to actually advise your super juniors on what they should do a week before the examination. So my first question is, there are many students who are a bit like you in the sense that who have revised everything, they have done their PYQs and sample papers, everything, but they're still feeling very anxious. So what would you tell to all those students?
Firstly, thank you, sir, for calling me over here. It's my great pleasure to interact with you again. And yeah, so the juniors who will be giving their exams right now, first of all, there's no point in being anxious, super anxious at this point of time, because that is going to negatively affect your performance if you don't keep that anxiety in limits. And at the same time, now that you have done the syllabus, so don't think a lot about how you should be, like whether you have done it properly or not. Instead, you can focus more on solving multiple question papers as a time-based test. That is surely going to help you in also conditioning your brain to giving multiple exams. And so when you have your final boards, at that time, you won't feel that you're doing something new or something that you haven't done before.
Yes.
And don't think a lot about the outcome. Focus on the process and like see to it. Some pressure has to be there because that will help you in studying properly. But then ensure that it doesn't go beyond a particular limit, that it will start negatively affecting you.
Yeah, absolutely. I must tell you, students, that Aarya's story has been one of consistency, focus, and systematic hard work. I think that's how I would describe Aarya, that someone who was very focused in the way he went about his studies, and that applies both to his class 10 as well as while he was studying for NEET. Now, what really would be the mantra, Aarya, to do the last minute revision? How do you, I mean, apart from the sample papers, question papers, multiple question papers that they can get and solve, but is there something which, like for instance, if day after tomorrow is my physics examination, what should I do 1.5 days before that in the last 36 hours or so?
Firstly, you need to see whether you know everything which is there in the syllabus, like all the parts of the textbook, because the pattern of the question paper is such that it is very objective.
Yep.
So you can't really have some weak part or something that you haven't revised enough.
Yep.
So ensure that you have revised everything and done all the parts of the syllabus very well. And also there is one PDF on the website of the council where they have given the specimen answers, the model answer key and the common mistakes which are done by the students.
Yep.
So if you have not seen that before, see to it that you go through it once again.
Yep.
So that you come to know which mistakes you have to avoid and which parts, how your answer should actually be structured and what is expected from you by the examiner. And try to revise everything which is there in the syllabus. That is what matters.
Right. Are you specifically talking about subjects? Let's say for a subject like mathematics, is there something, or for any of the science subjects, PCB, is there something, because now, unlike your batch, which had completely subjective, now it's a mix of MCQs and subjective question answers. So the pattern, the format of the question paper has also changed to an extent. Of course, you are familiar, having cracked NEET, you are familiar with the MCQ pattern. Would you say there has to be a certain approach to tackle the MCQs and a slightly different and a nuanced approach when you are tackling the subjective questions, especially when it comes to PCMB?
When it comes to the MCQs, they generally try to test upon the minute portions of the syllabus. Like they'll expect you to know something very specific. And then in MCQs, you also have a chance, like if you don't know the exact answer, you can actually go for the option elimination methods and all. which can help you to increase your probability to get the answer right. So that is what you can do for the MCQs, and then try to focus on the minute parts as well, because they can very well be potential MCQs.
Yep.
And for the subjective part, again, like it depends on the subject which we are talking about. For maths, you need to be thorough with the steps and all. Now, in maths, for the MCQs, don't waste a lot of time in going step by step. You can use some shortcuts, and same for physics, numericals as well.
Yes.
So you can use those shortcuts and try to cut down on the time you are spending for the MCQs, so that you'll get more time for the subjective portion. And then for the science subjects, for the subjective questions, you need to have a good approach when it comes to the writing all the steps and like being detailed over there, depending on what the question is asking.
Right, absolutely. Aarya and I, of course, interacted a lot as far as the history, civics, and English literature language were concerned. History, civics, geography, would you consider it to be more or less the same approach, or a certain element of maybe rote learning when it comes to a subject like geography would be needed?
Like for the factual parts, you need to remember them. So there's no escape from rote learning. But then geography is also having many conceptual parts. Like they ask some very conceptual questions. Like especially in the subjective part, at our time we used to have those give reason questions.
Yes.
Where many a times even the answers were not directly given in the textbook. So we had to think in a different way to get to the answer.
Yes.
So similar type of questions can be there in the MCQ part as well. So we need not just rote learning, we need to have a good understanding of the subject as well.
Right. And finally, coming to the languages, the English literature language and whatever be the second language, is there something that you would tell the students?
In those subjects also MCQs are there.
Yep. Literature definitely has MCQs now. 16 MCQs, in fact, from Merchant of Venice and Treasure Trove Poems and Stories. So that actually is a googly, because you need to know the very, very minute details of every story and scene, who was present, who said this and stuff like that. So that becomes a little tricky. But again, MOV, you would consider that extreme thoroughness with the text is something which is absolutely essential.
Yes, and even in the subjective questions, many times they ask very minute things. Like they used to ask those who spoke this dialogue, or what happens after this dialogue, or before this dialogue.
Yes.
So you need to know those things. And again, like you need try to understand all the minute parts, even in the stories and the poems. You need to know those things, which can be a potential MCQ.
Right.
And also, maybe they may not ask all questions directly. Like there can be some element of twist in those MCQs as well.
Okay.
So don't just rote learn the stories and the poems. Know the like the analysis part as well.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Aarya, for your time and patience and being able to answer all these questions. And I'm sure the juniors, the batch of 2023, would be super thrilled to hear from you on what exactly a potential topper should do. What should they do in order to emulate you in these examinations? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Aarya. Thanks.